Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for another edition of Texas Insider TV. I'm Jim Cardle. In a busy legislative session, one of the heaviest lifts underway is regarding Texas education and helping Texas school kids. State Senator Dan Patrick from Houston is in his fourth term. He's chairman of Senate Education Committee. We're glad to be able to visit with Senator Dan Patrick today. Senator, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be back.
As I mentioned, it's a busy session. We're down under 50 days. You have had a particularly busy session. I want to get into a couple issues, but probably one of the things that is getting the most media attention, grassroots focus, is something called CSCOPE, curriculum, overall program of education. Tell us what you're working on in that regard, if you will.
Well, the CSCOPE came to me early last fall. Once I was named chairman of education, I started getting more input from parents around the state concerned about this program. And very quickly, CSCOPE is a lesson plan program designed for teachers in primarily rural districts where they don't have a curriculum department or they don't have a big management team. And so new teachers and teachers rely on another source to help them plan through the year.
Okay.
CSCOPE is in 875 districts. We have over 1,000 public school districts. Most of these districts are small. And the first things that came to my attention was calling the Boston Tea Party patriots terrorists, having fifth graders design a flag for a new country, happened to be a communist flag, having a lesson on Islam this thick and Christianity that thick. We should teach all religions, but this to this doesn't equate. And then we started finding lesson plans that were just faulty in terms of basic math and basic science. So I had a hearing. It was my first or second hearing in January, and we discovered that not only were the lesson plans a question, but the whole setup of this. Very quickly, we have 20 regions in the state of Texas with a regional service center.
A lot of folks don't know about the regional service centers, but they're influential.
They're very influential, and they designed this course several years ago, and it's grown and grown and grown. And they set up a private company, which they shouldn't have done.
Okay.
They didn't ask for permission. I believe it's illegal. And they set it up as a shell so that they wouldn't have to reveal what was in the lesson plans. For whatever reasons, various people have different opinion on why. And so we started questioning them, and they just didn't have the answers to why they were refusing to reveal their lesson plans to parents. And then the other issue we looked at, they had contracts that said teachers could go to jail if they revealed the lesson plan. So it made me very suspicious, other members suspicious. So we've gone through the process. We've gotten them to agree to shut down the private company. We've gotten them to agree to put their lesson plans online for people to see, for schools to show the lesson plans to parents if they ask, and to turn over all of their lesson plans to the State Board of Education. The first time ever, because the State Board usually has review over textbooks. Now they have a review over lesson plans under our bill. That we passed out 9-0 last week, and we'll pass it off the floor this week. But I'm still concerned, Jim, for this reason. I just got an email last night of the Decatur superintendent
outside of Dallas,
who said to a parent, if you want copies of the lesson plans, it's going to cost you $515.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because you, in your hearings, have had trouble getting yourself copies of this material.
Barbara Cargill, who's our great chairman of the State Board of Education, it took her 6 months to get a password to look at what's there. So I'm still not sure before the session's over that I'm not going to call for a total closing down of the CSCOPE program. I'd call for it today. I don't have the votes today.
Okay.
But as we see stories like this, Decatur Independent School District, and in his email to the parent, besides charging the $515 for her to see what she has a legal right to see for free, he says he has to get permission from CSCOPE. That is a violation of everything they've testified to and what they've agreed to. So this is just recent as of yesterday. So this is a real issue for me. Here's the bottom line. Education is changing before our eyes. The textbooks will basically disappear in another 10 years. We have McAllen School District where they've given an iPad to every student.
Virtual learning.
Virtual learning is there, online learning, and all those things are good. But in the good old days that weren't long ago, when the SBOE had supervision over textbooks, we knew what was in the classroom. Today, with online courses coming on like that, with no supervision, no checks and balances. We don't know what's being taught in the classroom. And we're going to have to get our arms around that, and I'm determined to do so.
Big deal. We'll have to have you back. Talk more about CSCOPE.
Yes.
Would be a full hour-long show in itself. But if I can, let's move on real quick to another big initiative of yours, and that's the Business Tax Credit Scholarship Program, SB 23. Talk a little bit about where that is, if you would.
Well, this session began as the new chairman of education. I wanted to bring about the biggest and boldest reforms in education that we've had in a long time, and we're well down that road of doing so. This week we passed out the charter bill for the first time, sweeping reforms in our charters, get rid of the bad ones, increase the high-quality charters. That passed 30-1 out of the Senate in a strong bipartisan support on an issue that sometimes it's hard to get there. We've passed the parent trigger out of committee that lets 50% plus one of parents take over a poor performing school and turn it over to a high quality charter or another school district. We're moving our rating systems from unacceptable to exemplary. Parents really don't know what that means, to an A to F. You'll know if your school district's an F or an A, and you'll be involved.
They'll understand that.
We have the business tax credit that we passed out of committee the other day, which would allow businesses to take a tax credit to pay for poor students in failing schools to be able to go to a private school. It takes no money, despite the misinformation and disinformation out there by others. It takes no money out of the public school system.
And when you're saying this is a big issue, I think, to a lot of voters or folks that follow politics, when you say the poorer, more needy folks in Texas, you're talking about 35,000, 25,000 in needy neighborhoods, correct?
Yeah, we're focused right now on 200% of the free and reduced lunch students in failing schools. We have 8,500 campuses. We forget we're a nation. We have more students in our schools in Texas than many countries in Europe have people. We have 5 million students in public school. We have 130,000 in charters, 300,000 homeschooled, 250,000 in private schools.
I need to have you slow down. You've got so much information to work
But of those 8,500 campuses, K through 12 across Texas, about 500 are failures. Imagine sending your child to a school that we say is a failure. And we already have school choice. For those who are against school choice, we already have it. If you're rich enough, you can send your child to any private school you want. If you're mobile enough and you're in a bad school district, you move and drive through a lot of traffic to get to work, to get to a better school district. But if you're a poor mom in an inner city that depends on taking the bus to work, you don't have the money to send your child to a private school, you can't move to the suburbs. So why does she not have the same choice that others have? And it's not only is it the best thing for the future of that student, because 43% of all students, of all children born in poverty, die in poverty because they never get an education. 80% of the people in prison can't read at the 4th grade reading level. We see the common tie-ins in education and what it does to the economy and government programs and Medicaid and all of these things in the future. Children born out of wedlock. It's all tied into education. And so it's not only about the student and that student's future, it's about the state of Texas, our future. Right now we have a 20% dropout rate and 20% of students graduating with what I call a very paper-thin degree that's not worth much. That's 40% of our students today graduating not prepared for college, career, or even without a high school diploma. We have got to turn that around, and that's been our focus. And I'm also proud this session we passed more legislation to help students with special needs and foster care. And I passed a bill to put cameras in classrooms with the students, only in classrooms where it's a self-contained special ed, out of several convictions of teachers and teachers' aid of abusing students in special needs classrooms. The most offensive case to me was the parent who came and testified, and the teacher put her disabled child in a file cabinet drawer every day and sent a folder home with a smiley face, your child had a good day.
Unbelievable.
And it's not it's most of our teachers are doing a great job. My wife was a school teacher. We have courageous people doing great things. But in a state with 330,000 teachers, 8,500 campuses, and 1,000 school districts, we have some bad actors, and we need to protect our most vulnerable, our children with special needs and their parents.
Good work there. And if I can, again, folks, we're visiting with State Senator Dan Patrick from Houston, Chairman of the Senate Education Committee. Senator, real quick to wrap up, another question that is in the news a lot, and it has to do with testing. You mentioned the curriculum and some of the programs in school leading to economic development, but we got to make sure they're getting a good education. What are you working on for testing?
You know, the one thing that politicians aren't very good at is admitting a mistake. And several years ago, before I got there and after I got there, the state put in 15 statewide tests that you had to pass to graduate.
Known as the STAR test.
The STAR test. Seemed like a good idea at the time, a final exam. but it's turned out not to be a good idea. Over-testing, and it's shutting down entire schools for full days. And so the House passed a bill 148-2 to reduce the 15 to 5. We passed a bill out of our committee, 9-0, to reduce down to 5 days of testing. There's a big push by a small group of people that want, I believe by Pearson, the company that gets a $100 million a year contract, by the way, for the testing, that they want to continue the test. We're going to fight to reduce these tests. We're also changing the curriculum to create more career pathways as well as getting students ready for college.
Okay.
But we're going to reduce the number of tests, and we as a legislature just have to look at the people and say, we got this wrong, we're going to fix it, and not make any excuses. And I'm not in the excuse business.
Specifically, definitely appreciate that. Specifically, if I can, because there's been concern about it, let me ask you, are the tests going from 15 to 5, the accusation about them being dumbed down? Are we dumbing down our testing?
Absolutely not. The testers, again, Pearson, $100 million contract, they're not in the business of education. They're in the business of making a buck. Okay? Selling as many tests as they can. I'm concerned about a company that grades 1 billion answers over 6 weeks nationally. I'm more concerned about the teacher in the classroom making the final decision if your child is ready to go to the next grade because they're in front of the classroom, not some stranger making $12 an hour out in Iowa, grading 50,000 answers to an open-ended question where they put their own political bias in that. Secondly, we're not dumbing down anything. Our curriculum, we're adding foreign language to every student that must graduate, or computer language. We're adding science to our base degrees. We have not changed any of the curriculum. We've not dumbed it down. We're not weakening accountability. And the Washington Post and the New York Times don't know what they're talking about. And the people here in Texas who are saying this, a small group of people, I believe, all influenced and tied to the big dollars from the big testing companies. That's what it's about, and I'm not going to put up with it.
Testing, certainly a big issue. We'll have to have you back in the future to talk more about that. We will have you back, folks. Senator Dan Patrick, Chairman of the Senate Education Committee out of Senate District 7. Thank you for joining us. We want to thank you for joining us on Texas Insider TV, brought to you by SpeedStream. Remember, you're either an insider or you're not. Come back and join us next time. I'm Jim Cardle.